Hello, everybody, and welcome to this month's Broadway World Podcast. Today we have a very special guest. Today we're learning about vocal exercises, and we're going to learn from a vocal teacher today. Um, so please welcome the honest voice coach, Breanne.
Hello, Haley. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing really well.
I am so sorry that I was a little late. I
Oh,
had
it's
some technical
okay.
issues.
No, it's all good. It's all good. I'm excited to be here and to chat.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, no problem. My pleasure.
Uh, so, but I just want to ask how you are.
I am doing really well. We just started 2024. I feel like my studio is off to a good start. My singing is off to a good start. Everything's feeling really good.
Good, 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 good. So, I asked you on because a lot of people don't understand, musical theater just doesn't come naturally. Like you have to practice. You gotta learn how to how to keep your voice like safe and
Yeah,
like that, like and take care of your voice.
totally.
And I was just hoping that you could, tell us a little bit about that and
Yeah.
what and like how to figure out like how to how to tap how to do that
Yeah.
safely and like how to do that safely.
Absolutely. So it totally depends on, what kind of singer you're talking about. So in terms of like musical theater, we have like the pro musical theater singer who's like maybe on Broadway, five, six, seven, eight, nine shows a week.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have the kind of more of like the amateur Broadway singer who is studying musical theater, but is not, singing those eight, nine, 10 shows a week.
Right.
So I primarily work with singers who are not at like the professional level of like, okay, they're in New York, they're performing. A lot of my work tends to be around adults who are doing this to feel like a sense of belonging in their
Mm-hmm.
community. I teach a lot of like community musical theater students.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say that in terms of like the professional Broadway singer, the one who's like booking all the shows, compared to like the avocational adult, the only difference is really stamina, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I would say, so why don't we dive into more of like that avocational adult who's kind of just starting to dive into the world of musical theater, and they want to sing, maybe they want to audition, and
Mm-hmm.
they want to get better. One of the first things we're going to talk about is character,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I feel like in terms of character, you're going to want to pick a song, first of all, any musical theater song that A, you love,
Mm-hmm.
and B, you feel like you can tell the story and that you understand the story. So, okay, do you have a favorite Broadway song? I know that's a really hard question.
Oh, not for me. Oh, not for me.
Amazing.
Uh, so I recently went to go see the Jagged Little Pill on tour.
Amazing.
I've seen it 3 times, by the way.
I love that for you. I love that for you. I haven't seen it yet, and I've been wanting to because I'm a big fan of Alanis Morissette, and I love contemporary musicals.
Yeah.
That's where my like heart lives, I would say, is contemporary
Mm-hmm.
musical theater land. So
Mm-hmm.
that's amazing. I love that. Okay, so is that your favorite show like at the moment?
Yeah, for the last couple of years, I got a tattoo actually.
I love that. That's so cool. Oh my
That
gosh. Wait, what does it say? I can't.
it says, besides, it's not like anyone knows who they are anyway, which is a line from the show.
I love that. That's so beautiful. What a cool idea. Love it. Okay, so do you have a favorite song?
My favorite song is Hand in My Pocket.
Love Hand in My Pocket. Okay. So this is what I would typically ask a musical theater singer. Why do you like that song?
Um, I love that song because just the lyrics,
Mhm.
they mean so much to me. Like just um, like the lyrics in general, they talk about like how it's okay not to have it all figured out.
Mhm.
You know, we're
Mhm.
just trying to make it in the world, like that sort of thing. I love the message it brings.
Mhm. Okay, wonderful. That's great. And I would say like that's usually why most people love songs, right? Like they really relate to the message of
Yeah.
the song or like the lyrics.
Hmm.
There might be like a specific lyric that you're like, no, I love that. Yeah, so I'm thinking of like the traditional Alanis Morissette One Hand in My Pocket, which I feel like is probably the same thing in the Broadway version.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, it's very like carefree. And I feel like maybe us as humans can all like relate to that, right? And so the first thing that I would ask the student is, okay, great. So why do you like that? Why do you love the song? And what do you feel your character is singing about? So where can we kind of explore in the song the like ebbs and flows, or the highs and lows, or certain moments of the song that you can give a little bit more vocally, and other moments where you might have to like take it back, right? So I approach this kind of work with like a curiosity or like play type
Hmm.
of mindset. So if we can learn to, explore different emotions as we go through the song, I feel like it starts off, is it I'm broke but I'm happy?
Hmm.
Yeah, so I'm broke but I'm happy. I'm rich. No, that doesn't make any
I'm
sense.
poor, I'm
I'm
poor, but I'm kind. Yeah.
poor but I'm kind, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm something and then baby, right? Like I feel like how that how that song starts, it already sets up the mood for it to be like carefree and like whatever. So I would say to my student, okay, how would you sing that? If she was feeling really happy and really, giddy about something, you might change the inflection. You might sing it. How does it start again? I'm poor, but I'm kind. I'm smart, but I'm hungry, baby. It changes. And if I were sad, I might again change the kind of vocal color that we're using.
Um,
I'm broke, but I'm happy. I'm poor, but I'm kind. Right? So
yeah.
it's all about knowing the intention of what the lyric is and how you're singing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Awesome. Awesome.
Oh, and then I actually bought a physical aid. Brought these.
Are those straws?
Yes.
Amazing. Oh my, the straw brush. Wait, amazing. Are they
Starburst.
all different like sizes and stuff too?
Yeah.
So freaking cool. Love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you must know a little bit about straw singing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. I was taught by a different vocal coach. Her name is Megan, and I found her on TikTok too, actually.
Oh,
Um,
cool. Yeah.
and she taught me about this, and I had just now bought these because I was like, I don't have these, so I need to buy
Listen, straw singing can be so transformative in our singing, right?
them.
Because it changes the shape of the vocal tract. So it can be
Mm-hmm.
a really safe way to start your warm up, and it's a really great way to cool down. So, if you're doing hours and hours of singing, like you want to be really mindful of your muscles. I like to attribute it to exercising and working out, right? Like it's maybe not the best or the safest to like work out for 3 hours. Like that's a lot on your body. You're probably going to feel fatigued unless you've built up to that. Most of us have not, right?
Right,
So
right.
the straw is a way for the vocal folds essentially to like get a deeper stretch. There's so honestly, Haley, there's so many benefits of straw singing. Certain students, it has completely like transformed their voices. I know for me, it's a really useful tool, especially if I'm feeling extra tired, extra fatigued. Maybe if I've used any strain, because sometimes like when I'm speaking, I don't always like think about supporting the air or like sending my voice forward, and then I tend to like get into like this vocal fry speak, which is not the healthiest. And of course, when I'm teaching, I tend to use a lot of, my speaking voice. So I have to be really mindful after, like a 6 hour teaching day. So with your straw, you're going to just want to make sure that you're blowing. My favorite tip for straw use is make sure that that air that you're blowing out is coming directly out through the straw, right? So as if you're literally like blowing out a candle. You want to get that feeling, okay?
So like,
Exactly.
so
Yeah.
yeah,
And then just put voice to it, right?
so
You
it's
got to
like,
try. Exactly. Yeah. Otherwise, you're just like vibrating on the straw, and
yeah.
that's not really doing anything. You want to make sure that the air is coming through. I personally, myself, I notice more of a contraction in my abdominals. I notice more of some engagement in my intra-abdominals, which are those muscles in and around what everyone knows as the diaphragm, right? However, the diaphragm is like not the main vocal muscle or the vocal breath muscle, right? I really, really enjoy using the straw to get a better idea of what my breath management is doing when I'm singing. And so I prefer to use the straw on singers who also may have issues, maintaining their breath, or maybe they're singing with a little bit too much meat in the sound and it's strange or it's tense. Then I'll say, okay, cool. We're going to keep that same feeling of like strength in the voice, but now let's add the straw to it. And it's the way that the acoustics work, of why the straw can be so beneficial. But yeah, I love that you use the straw. It's a fantastic way to sing and to really like hone in your technique.
And I also I found this through an ad on TikTok. I don't know how I find these, but I just find them. There's like this,
Target. They know.
they know. They do know. It's like this water bottle that has like water in it, and like
Yeah. I don't have one. Oh, I have my Stanley. And listen, I got the Stanley like a year and a half ago before it was like super cool. So I am not one of those 10-year-olds who's like, I don't know, Stanley. I've had this for a long time. Yeah, I'm not going to use this because it's completely full. So that's going to be not helpful at all. So if you're using a straw and water, you're going to want to make sure that your straw, here's my biggest tip. Your straw is not too far deep into the water, because what you're going to be doing is you're going to be adding way more resistance that you don't need. So you want to make sure that it's about like, the deepest you want is halfway, maybe a little bit higher. Okay. And then you can start to blow from there. And so the bubbles, when you're blowing into water, creates more flow in the sound. So if a singer is really struggling with just the straw, I might introduce the straw and water. But yeah, the straw and water is a fantastic resource as well. Love it. Yeah, that's great. I love that they're targeting you. They know.
They know. Because I find all these things, even like on Amazon. I don't know how my Amazon knows, but like I see things, I'm like, how do this internet know?
It's terrifying. It's so cool, but it's also like terrifying.
Yeah, it's a little scary. It's a little scary.
That's good.
There's like this like it's weird. Like there's like a vocal muff you put like over your
Oh,
face.
I've seen that. I have a girlfriend and a colleague of mine who uses that when she's traveling. She's an opera singer. And so obviously, when she's in a hotel room, she can't be singing too loudly because people will hear, right? Like it's such a robust, intense, loud sound. So she uses it's almost like a mask of some sorts. Not like masks, like not like COVID, but like almost like when you're going for surgery and they're putting it over your face.
Yeah, it's like a muff and there's like a hole here.
Yeah.
I'm like,
it creates the same effect essentially that like a straw does, but you're still able to get the volume. You're just not outputting it into the world, right? So that's a great way to practice too. Yeah. Those are all great tools. And it's really everybody's different. Everybody is going to react differently to certain exercises. So like straw and water, just the straw by itself, the mask. These are called SOVT exercises, which stands for semi-occluded vocal tract. Semi-occluded vocal tract means that your vocal tract, which starts at your lips and it goes all the way down in through your pharynx. Basically, it stops like near the tongue root, essentially right before the larynx. You can shape that certain ways, right? So when we add a straw, I don't have a straw on me, but pretend this is my straw, this pencil. Now what I've done is I've added length to my vocal, literally like this much length. So it's going to, my vocal folds are going to respond differently to that length added on. So SOVTs include straws, those masks that we were talking about, Vs, voiced Vs, like a, because I've still got that half closed situation going on. THs, what else? Oh, blowfish. Blowfish is one that is one of my personal favorites. Blowfish, it's like a makeshift straw. So you're puffing out your cheeks and blowing the air through. So if you don't have a straw, or maybe if the straw isn't working for you, essentially what that blowfish exercise does is it takes away the length, but it still gives you that back pressure that's going on. And it releases your throat muscles, which is really nice. So, not that we don't want to be using our throat muscles. Yes, we want to have some engagement, but when it's all happening in the throat, that's where like strain and tension can creep in. And not just strain and tension, but like strain and tension patterns. So then it becomes something that, you know, when you're singing, now you're experiencing, your muscles are just so used to over engaging or used to kind of grabbing on. And so we want to make sure that we're preventing against that.
All right, yeah. Because I also wanted to ask, because I asked my old vocal teacher this, and she told me that like with my disability, it's like it doesn't matter. I can still do the exercises because I have a curved spine because I don't sit up straight, and I know that sitting up straight is really helpful for singers.
Totally. Yeah, that's so funny that you're talking about alignment, because I'm actually working on a mini course right now, and one of the modules in it is about alignment. And I am a firm believer that you do not have to be able to sit, like, you know, when we think sit up straight, what happens? We tend to overexert things, overarch the back, right? Push the shoulders back. That is actually not like good, or I hate using this word, but I'll use it, like healthy, whatever healthy is, healthy alignment. When you look at musical theaters singing on stage, are they always standing up straight when they're singing?
Oh,
Not
no.
always. No.
No.
Sometimes
No.
they're like this, right? Like they're like hunched over,
Mhm.
and they can still get a great sound. So I'm a big firm believer in that, like, your alignment may have something to do with optimal sound, but there are usually other ways that we can adjust in finding that same optimal sound. I would say for classical singing, yes, absolutely, alignment makes a difference.
Different.
Musical theater and contemporary, not at all. Yeah, not at all.
No, I agree. Like, because even she said, she's like, that totally doesn't matter. I'm like, okay, good. So that makes me feel a lot better because I was insecure about it for a while. Because
Oh, I'm so
like,
sorry. You
I was
shouldn't have to be.
I was
Oh.
insecure because I was like, am I gonna be able to do Broadway one day if I'm not straight lined, like spined and
Well, listen, I encourage anybody to go and watch a musical and watch what the characters are doing on stage. They're typically not standing up straight. Classical singers and operatic singers, absolutely, right? Because we have to, with opera and classical, the whole point is like you're unmiked, you're singing unamplified, meaning you're having to cut through that orchestra, right? And so we need to make sure that our bodies are in this like athletic state so that we can do that. Musical theater singers, we're mic'd, right?
so we can
So
do
we don't
whatever
ever have to
we
worry.
want.
Exactly.
Yeah, we can
Exactly.
do whatever the fuck we want.
Hey, we do whatever the fuck we want. I love that you dropped an F bomb because I'm a constant F bomb dropper, except when I'm around my kids because I have to be careful.
It's my show. We can do whatever we want.
I love it. I love it. That's amazing.
Ugh. But yeah, I that does make me feel better because
Good.
again, it's very insecure about my spine being curved, and I'm like,
Of course.
yeah.
Yeah, of course. I can see how that would be an insecurity for you. But it won't limit you. It won't
Okay,
limit you for sure.
good,
Yeah.
good. Because I've been wanting to book again for my
Yeah.
for my lessons, but I'm like kind of like holding myself back. So I'm like,
Yeah.
Can I do this? Can I not do
Totally.
this?"
It's a
Yeah.
mindset. I find that singing is such a mindset shift too, right? Like there are days where, like, I'll be honest, I go and practice and then I don't like the sound that's coming out and I'm like, well, that's it. And I just give up. And that's real. That's real life,
Yeah.
right? So
Right,
there are days
right.
where I'm like, oh, right? Like you look in the mirror and you're like, I do not like what I'm looking at. Or you hear yourself back on like a self tape and you're like, what was that? I suck. It's this constant, cycle of like, most of it is I'm shit, I'm shit, I'm shit, and then oh, this is okay, and then I'm shit, I'm shit, I'm shit, and oh, this is okay, and it's a
Yep,
cycle, right?
yep, yep.
That's normal. We have to normalize that. It's about taking little steps towards our goals, right? And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we can feel like we have a setback, but we're still farther to our sorry, not farther, closer to our goal than we were when we first started. But we don't
Right,
see those tiny little steps that we've taken in between that, right?
right.
Yeah.
And I think it helps too for anyone that's watching this
Mhm.
to like and who is going into studying for musical theater.
Mhm.
Like you don't have to have it like right away.
Oh my
It
goodness.
takes time.
No, no. The whole point, especially like, so do you mean like folks who might be wanting to study it at like a post-secondary level, like a university or college? Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, yeah. Like, listen, there are some really competitive programs out there. I'm from Canada, and we don't have a ton. We have one really big prominent one called Sheridan,
Mhm.
and that is in Toronto, Ontario. And I do find that from my experience with my own students, because they have such a limited amount of space for their students, sometimes like it seems like they want you to almost be at the professional level before you can get in, which always doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Like
Um,
the whole point for me, who I did go to school for post-secondary, like for music at the post-secondary level in university, I went for classical. That's a whole other story. When I did my audition, they're looking for potential. They're looking to see like, okay, can this girl get better, essentially? Does she have the fundamentals and like the foundation of what could be a great instrument, et cetera, et cetera. Um, but I think it's because a lot of these programs, especially in the States, you're in the States, yeah?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
so you have way more musical theater programs, but I still think that they are so highly competitive.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, you do have to make sure that if you're wanting to kind of like go into the post-secondary level and study at the post-secondary level, like you have to make sure that you've done your technical work, you've done your character work, like you've worked so hard to make that audition feel like a performance. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep, I agree. Because I mean, for an example too, like Lauren Patton, she didn't just like wake up one day and be like, I got this, and
Oh my goodness. It's a whole journey, right? Like I am
yeah,
35 years old and I'm still learning. I'm still learning, I'm still growing, and I love that about myself. I love that like I don't know everything. Like I get to learn and I get to enjoy the journey as I'm learning new things as a singer, as a voice teacher, as a voice expert, quote unquote, who's,
mm,
in a learning situation with another student. Like I never claim that I'm the master and I know everything. No, 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 no. There's so much. Voice science is constantly evolving and constantly changing. It's
mm,
important for me to keep up to date with that science.
right,
Um, and the musical theater industry is changing too, right? Like look at all these contemporary musicals that are coming out. I love that that's becoming, more of the normalized genre right now.
mm-hmm.
But I
Yeah,
do I do think that those programs unfortunately are competitive, so it means that like you have to make sure that your auditions are like they're perfect in a way.
yeah, right, yeah. And I mean, I want to normalize too. Like, you don't have to, you don't have to like just start off like right away in school and pregnant. Like you can be
No.
you can be any age and
I
do
wish
it.
people knew that. I wish people knew that, Haley, because my kind of clientele that I serve primarily, that I get really jazzed about working with, and that my studio is comprised of, is like adults who are over the age of like 2025. My oldest is 77, like, and I would teach well beyond that as well. It's literally never too late to start. And I think there's this idea in the industry that you have to be young and you have to be upcoming, you have to live in New York, and like all of that is just false information. Like it's fake news.
Right. And I feel like a lot of the time with that false information, people get let down and they feel bad about themselves because they're like Well, I didn't. I'm like 35, and I didn't know any of this, so I'm far behind now. And
Oh, that's not it at all. That's not, yeah. The cool thing about, being in your 30s and 20s, 30s, 40s and beyond is that like typically you have a better idea of like your sense of self. You know what you want. Your confidence level is probably different from when you were like a teenager in your 20s. And you also have like the real desire to learn, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So, but it is normal to feel like I just want to normalize that for a second. It is normal to feel like, oh my God, I'm behind, or like, oh my God, I wish I had done this sooner, or
Mhm.
well, there's no point in me singing this kind of music because if I ever want to make it, I need to be a certain age. And like, there are certain shows that, yeah, they are going to want to be hiring a certain age category or a certain age group. But for the most part, it really doesn't matter. And the important thing is that you start and that you genuinely like love what you're doing
Mhm.
and that it sets you up for this wave of creativity where you feel more like yourself. I feel like when I sing, and I love singing musical theater, I love singing cabaret is also like not the show cabaret, but like the style of cabaret is so fun to me. And like when I sing, it feels like I've come home to myself.
Mhm.
And I want everybody to feel like that. You have no idea how many adult singers come to me and they hear that I'm a voice teacher and they're like, oh, you're a voice teacher. Well, I can't sing. I'm tone deaf. And I always have to say, like, listen, tone deafness is actually so rare. It's like 0.001% of people are truly tone deaf.
Mhm.
Somebody maybe in their life had told them that they weren't good enough or they couldn't do it or they sucked or, they had some kind of like negative comment spoken to them. They've then taken that and essentially like ran with it for their entire life. And like, oh, that just like, it breaks my heart, honestly. I think as a voice teacher, it's not my job to tell someone that, like, you can't make it, you can't do this. I don't know. You could be the next Broadway star. How do
Mhm.
I know that? That's not in my hands.
Right.
My job
Right.
is to make sure that your instrument feels sustainable and that it feels repeatable. Like you can do, the
Mhm.
same vocals day in, day out, show in, show out. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly. And that's why you call yourself the honest vocal coach, because you're honest. You know.
Yeah, so that's interesting that you say that. So the Honest Voice Co. actually it became a thing in 2021. I had been teaching since 2011 before that, and I was just like the Breanne work voice studio, very generic. And I had this vision of having a mentorship role because there's something in the industry, there's like this negative connotation around young people teaching.
Mhm.
I think it's like this there's almost like a bias around it saying, oh, 20-year-olds shouldn't be teaching. They have to get life experience. They have to get performance experience. Well, how are they going to to have good teaching experience? Well, how are they going to have teaching experience if they're not teaching? So
Right.
I loved the idea of mentoring. I have a specific student that I was thinking of at the time, mentoring that person who at the time was like 17, 18, and who expressed a desire in coaching and in teaching. And I thought, well, what if I mentor her and she gains, real life and valuable experience teaching while I'm kind of like mentoring her and as she's also doing her own continuing education. And that's when the Honest Voice Co. was born. So I hired my first associate teacher, Maddie, who has been a student of mine since 2011.
Mhm.
And I hired my second associate teacher just this past year, who also was a former student of mine for like 6 years. And then she went off to pursue theater at the college level in Toronto, came back to Niagara, and now is teaching for me. And so we have this really beautiful like mentorship dynamic. But the reason as to why I called it the Honest Voice Co. is because all my life in classical singing, I was told that my voice was too something. Usually it was too raspy, it was too loud. I don't have the right sound for classical music. And in hindsight, like I I went to university for music because I love music and classical at the time was the only genre that you could go for. So I was like, okay, well, my whole goal was to like improve my voice. And I was under that belief that like well, if I want to learn pop music, if I want to learn musical theater, I have to sing classical first. And I'm a big pusher back on that. That's not true. That is untrue. But at the time, I didn't know any better. The science hadn't come out saying, no, you actually don't need to be doing, classical if you want to study contemporary techniques.
Mm.
They're completely different genres. They have completely different demands. It's not unhealthy to study classical and then do pop, but what it did for me was it ingrained a lot of negative beliefs about myself and about the pop and musical theater industries, because I do find there is this like elitist attitude amongst classical singers and amongst classical voice teachers who kind of like look down upon those genres as lesser than. And so I wanted to create a studio environment for singers to feel like they could come to voice lessons at any stage and feel like they could truly be themselves. Because like myself, I'm a little wacky, I'm a little quirky, I'm a little silly. I was always told like, well, she's a little quirky, but like I used to hate that about myself. I used to wish that I could be more normal, so to speak. But I love humor. I love joking around. I think life is too short to be so serious all the time. And I want other folks to feel empowered by that. And I want them to come into my studio feeling like this is who I am. And I maybe don't love this about myself yet, but I'm getting there. It's a journey,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. And I feel like every vocal coach should be like that.
Absolutely. I agree. I don't do well with like the traditional, stuffy, this is how it should be, and this is the only way, and I'm the master and you are the student. Like, no, yeah, I definitely have, advanced knowledge on the topic of voice science and voice pedagogy, which is like the art of teaching. But I'm not the master. I don't know everything. When a student says to me, well, what about this? And if I don't know, I'll say, ooh, you know what? I'm not too sure about that. Let me research it and I'll get back to you. Instead of saying, well, and thinking that I am the master of all. That's not it. I don't think that's, I
Mhm.
don't know. I don't think that's helpful at all. Yeah.
Right, exactly. That especially made me remember something. Um, my old my very first vocal coach,
Mhm.
I'd sang for her, and she's like, I think that you do have the potential for Broadway. And
Amazing.
and
That's
I'm
so
like,
nice.
you would think, but then like in my brain, I'm thinking, I don't think so. Like,
Oh, yeah. Again, we come back to that idea of mindset, right?
yeah.
And it's not something that you can just all of a sudden be like, I now have this great mindset where I am confident. Like, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like well, if you follow these steps, you will be confident. No, it takes time, right? It takes time to really trust yourself, trust your instrument, trust what your voice can do, and then love it. Come to a place where you're like, I actually think I have a cool sound and I really enjoy singing. And I enjoy singing this kind of music. And that confidence, I think, is like a byproduct of developing solid technique where you feel great about singing specific songs and going, well, that was actually really easy for me to sing. And that was maybe, a difficult song for me to do. Or, hey, those higher notes all of a sudden sound amazing. And like 2 months ago, they, didn't have the kind of depth that they have now. So I think
Mhm.
that that it all kind of like works together. It's all threaded together in a way.
Mhm. And then I just wanted to talk to you about, because I work with some vocal coaches that like I had to quit because like it was like too expensive. It was like 60
I
bucks.
get that. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then there was my last vocal coach. She was like, well, I can work with you on the price actually, and you can do whatever you can actually afford to give me
Mm-hmm.
and stuff. And so I wanted to ask, what exactly like is your type of like payment, kind of, if that's too much to ask,
No,
like.
no, no, no. So yeah, I have been a part of something called the Speakeasy Cooperative for about 2018. So that's what, six years now. And the Speakeasy Cooperative is essentially a business mastermind group for voice teachers specifically, or voice users or voice businesses. And so being in that group has taught me a lot about business. I'm by no means an expert at all. But I do understand that, yes, voice lessons can be expensive. I also think that like expensive is a term that, how do I want to say this? Like it's subjective, meaning that like what I think is expensive and what you think is expensive, it's more so what we value, right? So like for me, I'm a big budgeter. I love to talk about finances. I love to do a budget. I do our own like household budget every single month. It literally brings me such joy. It's probably the weirdest thing about me because I was not the best at math growing up, but I've learned, instead of saying to myself, well, I'm just a person who doesn't do math. Like, no, I own a business. I need to make sure that I know my maths. So
Yeah.
I know my maths. So for example, me personally, I love coffee. Okay. Coffee is like one of my favorite loves. It is, I will never not drink a coffee. Okay. If someone said to me like, hey, Breanne, you need to cut back your caffeine. I have like 2 coffees a day. Someone said like, oh, you have to go from, 2 cups of coffee to like none. I'd be like, I can't do it. Like, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
And so because I value the experience of like drinking a coffee, I am willing to spend $7 or $8 on like a fancy latte from Starbucks. I specifically build it into my budget. Now, that doesn't mean that I feel that way about everyththing, right? So there
Mhm.
are certain things. What's a good example? Okay, like groceries, right? Ugh, I'm
Yeah.
sure you guys experience this in the States, same as Canada, but like inflation, right?
Yeah.
Man, every time I go to the grocery store, I cry a little bit. And I will typically I'll price match things. I will buy things that are on sale. I meal plan so that I'm only buying kind of like what's on sale. So if specific meats are on sale, I will do our weekly meal plan around that, because like to me, like a chuck roast is a chuck roast, chicken breast or chicken breast. And if I can buy the chicken breast at $3.99 a pound compared to like $6.99, I will absolutely do that, right? So there's certain things that I don't really care price wise, but then there are other things that I'm like, no, this is meaningful to me, and I'm going to, I want my budget to like align with that.
Mhm.
So for me personally, with voice teachers, I feel like you need to determine your price in a numerous, and again, I'm not an expert by any means, but there are numerous different ways that you can kind of determine price. One is, how much experience do you have? Number two is how much does your business need to make to stay afloat? And I would say like last is honestly market. And this is all from Michelle Marquardt DeVoe, who is a professional, like she is a consultant, a professional business coach specifically for voice teachers. I've learned all of this from her, and taking her programs and having one-on-one sessions with her and being in the Speakeasy Cooperative. Um, I also want to be aware, how I work in my studio is I always say I'm trying to work myself out of a job. I joke and say that. What I mean by that is that if you feel like you want to take voice lessons for like a good year, great. But for the most part, my singers are doing the work on their own, and they're coming to voice lessons to like learn specific techniques or to, refresh or check in on something. And then they go back home and they do the work on their own. They don't need me to hold their hand in practice, right?
Mhm.
It's kind of like physiotherapy. You go to your first physiotherapy appointment, and your physiotherapist will give you specific targeted exercises to whatever area is bothering you. And then you go home and you do the exercises. Now if you don't want to do the exercises at home, that's fine, but then you're going to be going back to physio more often. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So recently I actually went to physio about a year ago. I had bursitis in my hip, which is like, I don't know, something about where the joint meets. It's like a flare up. And so I went for my first session. It was about an hour. And my physiotherapist said, okay, I'm going to email you these exercises. I want you to do them 3 to 4 times, a day, which felt like it was a lot. And we'll reconvene and meet back in like 2 weeks or whatever if that feels comfortable to you.
Mhm.
And we'll do a check-in and see where things are at. So I do think that, being expensive is kind of in the eye of the beholder in that, well, what can you afford as the singer? And how often do you need to go? Do you need to be going every single week, or can you afford to just do a session once a month? Like there are so many students that I work with that just come either once a month or when they feel they need a little refresher. If you're wanting to get really intense and do the work, I would definitely recommend weekly, but it depends on your goals, honestly. Does that
Mhm.
help?
Yeah, that helps immensely help.
Awesome.
Mhm. Um, so, well, do I have any more? I don't know. I think that's all the questions I have.
Amazing. Okay, that's awesome. Awesome.
Thank you for coming on.
Thank
Seriously.
you. Thank you, Haley. This was great. It was nice to chat with somebody else who loves Broadway like I love Broadway.
Yeah, me too. And um, for all the viewers that are watching right now, or listening because we are on Spotify, um, um, you you can also follow her on TikTok too because she has a TikTok.
I do.
And I was actually on your TikTok yesterday. Was it
Yeah,
yesterday?
I was doing a live. I was like, "Hey,
Yeah,
that's so funny." Yeah,
yeah.
I like honestly, I've just started doing lives and all I do is like warm up because to be honest with you, it keeps me accountable. Because sometimes I don't always warm up and that's not great.
No,
I go into
no,
teaching and I'm like, why do I feel yucky? And I'm like, oh yeah, because I didn't warm up. After telling all my singers, like, we're gonna do warm-ups, we're gonna do vocal exercises, and then like myself doesn't.
well, it also helps to exercise, especially in this winter. This winter sucks.
Well, winter's the worst. Sorry.
Winter's the worst. No, winter is the worst. I agree with you. The winter is the worst, especially for
Yes.
vocal artists. Like
Yes.
the,
Yes.
the throat is
Humidity
cracking.
is our friend. Humidity
Yeah,
is our friend, okay?
yeah,
So like when
yeah.
we don't have that, we experience more dryness. I see it in my skin, I see it I get it in my eyes. Like it's not a fun time, okay? It's
No,
yucky.
no, no,
No, hard no.
hard, no,
Hard
hard
no.
pass, hard pass.
Yes. I love it. I love it. But yeah, no,
Uh,
I'm on TikTok. I'm at the Honest Voice. I'm at the Honest Voice Co.
yep,
on TikTok, and I'm at the Honest Voice Co. on Instagram as well. So you
yeah.
can follow me there, hang out with me. I love the community of both. Both apps are so different. I find that it's like more Gen Z on TikTok, which I really relate to as a millennial. I'm like, yes, we love Gen Z. They're gonna like change the world. And then Instagram is like a completely different um uh following and community as well. But I love having those communities. It makes me feel more connected to other singers, other voice teachers. Yeah, I love being on those apps. I think
Yeah.
it's amazing.
Yeah. I find, at least for my podcast, Instagram and TikTok are more of a
Yeah,
good following to have.
yeah, totally, totally.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, those are great apps.
hmm well, again, thank you for coming on. You can follow her on Instagram
Yeah.
and TikTok at the the honest voice co.
Yep, you got it.
The honest voice co. It's a tongue twister. Oh my god.
I know it's a long one. I'm sorry.
The honest voice co. on TikTok and Instagram, and you can follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Part of Your Broadway World Podcast.
Love it. Such a
Oh,
cool, cheeky title. I love it so much.
yeah. Fun fact, actually, I came up with this because I was like, well, I love Disney because this is a Disney and
Love it.
a Disney and Broadway themed podcast where
Yeah.
like Broadway and Disney like meet because
Yeah.
there are a bunch of Disney movies that were Broadway musicals.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to think of a title of that would kind of showcase both. And my favorite character is Ariel, so I was like, Part of your Broadway world.
It's perfect. Ariel is
Yeah,
the best. Yes, I
yeah,
agree. I agree. I love
yeah.
that. That's such a good title.
It is. Uh, um. So, well, so yeah. Then again, third time. Then thank you for coming on,
No problem, my dear. It was so nice to chat and hang out with you.
and I'll see you guys in the next month's episode. Bye,
Awesome.
guys.
Bye.